Hello and welcome. I'm your host and speaker Sindhishri, and I'm a MuleSoft developer at Infometry. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. In today's webinar, I'll be talking about securing MuleSoft applications using JWT and OAuth 2. You will leave with understanding JWT and OAuth 2 security policies, applying those policies to securing Mule APIs. Feel free to drop questions on the topic and experiences during this session. We will answer your queries through chat. Let's start the session. This session is organized by Infometry. We are a pure play data analytics company based out of Fremont, California, with our offshore development center in Bangalore, India. We came into inception back in 2010, and since then we have been offering domain-specific analytics solutions for high-tech, energy, life sciences, retail, manufacturing, and finance customers. Being a data analytics software services and solutions provider, we focus on delivering predictive and prescriptive analytics solutions, cloud data warehouse implementation, governance, enterprise service bus, microservices-based integration solutions, big data, cloud DevOps, Salesforce CRM, and product engineering, etc. Infometry has been an engineering and consulting services partner for companies like Informatica, Matillion, Snowflake, Tableau, Adaptive Insights, Looker, etc. Infometry offers domain-specific analytics solutions for high-tech, energy, life sciences, retail, manufacturing, and finance customers. In addition to the services, we have also developed more than 15 cloud connectors for IACS. One mentioned in the blue blocks are developed and owned by us, and the rest are all developed by us only for organizations like Informatica, SAP Calidus, etc. We have developed the state-of-the-art analytics solution Infofiscus, which can be hooked to any on-prem or cloud CRM, ERP, or planning applications. Infofiscus is a 100% cloud-based pre-built analytics software developed using open architecture. Infofiscus comes in 3 different flavors: finance, supply chain, and sales and marketing analytics. We are delighted to announce the launch of the next generation Infofiscus Sales Analytics Snowflake native application, which aims to streamline sales analytics for customers using Salesforce, Marketer, and Snowflake. That's a quick introduction, and now let's move to our today's agenda. The topic is securing MuleSoft APIs using JWT and OAuth 2. In Mule4, API security is critical to protect sensitive data and prevent unauthorized access. MuleSoft offers built-in features like OAuth 2, JWT, and TLS encryption to secure APIs. With the endpoint platform, you can manage API security policies such as basic authentication, client ID enforcement, token validation, rate limiting, and IP filtering. This allows for a robust and scalable way to ensure that only authorized users and systems can interact with your services. JWT is a URL-safe token authentication method used for secure communication. OAuth 2 is an open standard for authorization that allows third-party applications to securely access resources without exposing user credentials. In Mule4, we can integrate OAuth 2 JWT via API Manager to enforce token validation and access control policies. Implementing OAuth 2 and JWT is streamlined through endpoint platform. You can configure OAuth 2 policies directly in API Manager, which enforces token validation and access controls across APIs. The JWT validation processor allows MuleSoft to verify the integrity of JWT tokens. Securing APIs is a top priority to protect sensitive data and prevent unauthorized access. MuleSoft provides a robust suite of tools to help you manage and secure APIs throughout their life cycle, ensuring that only authorized users and applications can access them. JSON Web Token is an open standard that defines a compact and self-contained way for securely transmitting information between services as a JSON object. JWTs can be signed using a secret or a public or private key pair. Signed tokens can verify the integrity of the claims contained within it, while encrypted token hide those claims from other parties. In MuleSoft, JSON Web Tokens can be used for authentication and authorization in several contexts, primarily to secure APIs and ensure that only authorized users or systems can access them. Structure of JWT. Header consists of two parts: the type of token, which is JWT, the signing algorithm being used, such as RSA. Payload consists claims. Claims are statements about an entity, user, and additional data. There are three types of claims. Registered claims. These are set of predefined claims which are not mandatory but recommended. For example, issuer, expiration time, subject, audience, and other. Public claims, these can be defined at will by those using JWTs. Private claims, these are the custom claims created to share between parties that agree on using them. In authentication, when the user successfully log in using their credentials, a JSON Web Token will be returned. The user should send the JWT in the authorization header using the bureau schema. How does JWT work? The application or client requests authorization to the authorization server. This is performed through one of the different authorization flows. When the authorization is granted, the authorization server returns an access token to the application. The application uses the access token to access a protected resource. Now we are going to see how to apply JWT token policies to a Mule API and how to generate JWT tokens. I have already created an API in Design Center, published to Exchange, applied a JWT policy in API Manager, and incorporated that API in Anypoint Studio. Now I'm going to show this API and steps I followed to create them. For the demo, I'm using Products API in API Manager. I have already created an artifact. Now I'm going to policies. JWT validation policy has already been applied. I'm going to edit and show you the configuration. Here we are using custom expression which should pass this JWT in API header. I chose HMAC as a JWT signing method. JWT signing key length is 256 and the key origin is text. In JWT key, we need to provide a unique key. We need to copy that key after we create it because we can't recover them. And I'm skipping client ID validation. This is it, a basic configuration. I'm saving the configuration and we go to Anypoint Studio. I have already configured API Auto Discovery with the API ID which we got from API Manager. And this product API has already been deployed on Runtime Manager. Before I send a request to the API, I want to show you an useful code I found online to generate a JWT token. A JWT token is composed of a base64 encoded URL header, base64 encoded URL data, payload, and signature. But in Mule 4, we don't have any function which can generate base64 encoded URL data. But this code helps us generate base64 encoded URL data and gives us valid JWT token. I have already copied this code in DataWeave online playground. I'm passing secret key in a variable called secret key. Here is the header and a payload details of a JWT token. And this code generated a JWT token. I'm copying this token, and here while sending request to products API, which is deployed on Cloud Hub 2.0, I'm sending this token in headers with the key JWT. And when I send the request, I got success response, 200 OK success response. If I edit and pass invalid token, I got invalid token unauthorized failure response. Yeah, this is about creating an API and applying JWT validation, JWT token validation policies to the API. OAuth 2 is a standard designed to allow a website or application to access resources hosted by other web applications on behalf of a user. OAuth 2 provides consented access and restrict actions of what the client app can perform on resources on behalf of the user without sharing the user's credentials. Although the web is the main platform for OAuth 2, the specification describes how to handle this kind of delegated access to other client types. OAuth 2 roles: a resource owner, the user or system that owns the protected resources and can grant access to them. The client is a system that requires access to the protected resources. Authorization server receives a request from the client for access token and issues them upon successful authentication and consent by the user, the resource owner. The authorization server exposes two endpoints: authorization endpoint, which handles the interactive communication and consent of the user; token endpoint, which is involved in a machine to machine interaction; resource server, a server that protects the user's resources and receives access requests from the client. OAuth 2 scopes used to specify exactly which access to resources may be granted, acceptable scope values, and which resources they relate to are dependent on the resource server. OAuth 2 access tokens and authorization code. The OAuth 2 authorization server may not directly return an access token. Instead, and for better security, an authorization code may be returned, which is then exchanged for an access token. In addition, the authorization server may also issue a refresh token with the access token. The refresh tokens may be exchanged for new access tokens. In OAuth 2, grants are the set of steps a client has to perform to get resource access. Authorization code grant: the authorization server returns a single use authorization code to the client, which is then exchanged for an access token. Implicit grant: a simplified flow where the access token is returned directly to the client. Authorization code grant with proof key for code exchange. This is similar to the authorization code grant but with additional steps that make it more secure. Resource owner credentials grant type. This grant requires the client to acquire the resource owner credentials which are passed to the authorization server. It is limited to clients that are completely trusted. Client credentials grant type, used for non-interactive applications, for example, automated processes, microservices, etc. In this case, the application is authenticated by using its client ID and secret. Device authorization flow, a grant that enables use by apps on input constrained devices such as smart TVs. Refresh token grant, the flow that involves the exchange of a refresh token for a new access token. How does OAuth 2 work? Before OAuth 2 can be used, the client must acquire its own credentials, a client ID and client secret from authorization server. Client requests authorization from authorization server, supplying the client ID, client secret as identification. It also provides the scopes and endpoints URI to send the access token or authorization code to. The authorization server authenticates the client and verifies that the requested scopes are permitted. The resource owner interacts with the authorization server to grant access. The authorization server redirects back to the client with either an authorization code or access token depending on the grant type. Refresh token may also be returned. With the access token, the client requests access to the server from the resource server. Now we are going to see how to create an API and create a OAuth 2 access token provider and how to apply OAuth 2 policy. I have created a Mule application which can provide access token. In this flow, we used OAuth 2 provider module, and here we can see different components: create client, delete client, revoke token, and validate token. But for the demo, to generate the token, to provide the token and validate it, we use two different components: create client and validate token. Now we will see the global element configuration for OAuth 2. We need a HTTP listener, a persistent object store to store client details, client ID and client secret and its name. Uh, Persistent and supported grant type. We are passing client credentials, and we need a persistent object store to store token details. This is the OAuth 2 provider configuration we are using. And in the message flow, we can see we created two flows. The first flow to create the client. In this component, we need to pass client ID, client secret, and client name from header. And the type is can be confidential and public, but we are using confidential. Redirect URL is the local host, and authorization grant type should be client credentials. The second flow is to validate access token. We should pass a access token by passing this a data wave expression. And this app acts as a OAuth 2 server, and this has already been deployed in a runtime manager or to access token provider. And for the demonstration, we used users API, and this app is also been created and deployed in a runtime manager. This API for the users API, we created an artifact in API manager with OAuth 2 validation policy. Now we go to the API and in API Manager and the policy OAuth 2 access token enforcement using Mule OAuth 2 provider. In this policy, we configured the token endpoint, validate token endpoint from access token provider application. This access token provider application is already deployed in runtime manager. This endpoint from Cloud Hub runtime manager, and we enabled skip for client ID validation. Now we can test this API. To test it, to validate this configuration, we need three different endpoints: client ID, create client from access token provider, generate token, and validate token. And this is the users endpoint, users API. First, we need to create the client. These are the parameters, these are the header parameters we need to pass to this endpoint: client ID, client secret, and client name. And we need to register this client in the access token provider. We got success response, which means this client ID and client secret is registered, is stored in the server. We need to pass this same client ID and client secret to generate the token. And instead of client name, we need to pass grant type, which is client credentials. When we send a request, we get access token. This access token we need to pass as a bearer schema. we need to validate this token, but for this user client ID, for this users API, we no need to validate the token because this validate token endpoint has already been configured in the API manager for this users API. We need to just pass it as a bearer schema in the header and send the request. We should get success response. Yes, we got the success response. If we pass the invalid token, we should get unauthorized unauthorized failure response. Yep, these are the ways to these are the steps to create access token provider and how to apply OAuth 2 validation policy for Mule APIs. Thank you all for taking the time to join us today. We truly appreciate your interest and engagement. We had like to open the floor for questions. Please go ahead and ask your questions now.
Yeah, hi, Sindhu. Kavi here.
Hi, Kavi.
Yes, Sindhu. Yeah, it's a good session. We got some useful details. Like here,
Thank
what
you.
is that main purpose of API security policies in Mule for applications?
Yes, Kavi. The main purpose of an API security policy in Mule 4 is to control who can access your API and what they can do. It acts like a security guard at the entrance of your API, checking credentials before allowing requests to proceed to your API's logic. So, this is the main purpose of using security policies in Mule 4.
Okay, Sindhu. Yeah, got it.
Hello, Sindhu. Like, I have a doubt in like access token thing. What is an like I have a question about that. Like, what is an access token in OAuth 2.0 and why it is used for API securities?
Yeah, an access token in OAuth 2 is like a digital key or a short-term pass. So the main purpose is that it's a credentials that a client application gets from authorization server after a user successfully logs in. So why it's used? The client then sends this access token with every request to Mule4 API. Your API can quickly check if this token is valid or not, if the user has a permission to perform the requested action or not, without needing the user's password for every call. Yeah, this is the main purpose of using. This is why we use the access token in OAuth 2.0.
Okay, okay. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Sindhu. This is Poonam, and I
Hi,
have a
Punam.
question related to webinar. First of all,
Yeah,
it was very insightful webinar.
yeah. Thank
So
you.
I just want to know that what happens if a request to your new core API doesn't have access token, and when O 2.0 access token enforcement policy is applied on that.
Okay. If a request to your Mule4 API does not include an access token, the policy will reject the request. So it typically responds with an HTTP status code of 401 unauthorized, indicating that the request is missing the required authentication credentials. Basically, it gives an unauthorized failure response, Poonam.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Thank you, Sindhu. Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, hi Sindhu.
Yeah, hi.
Thank you so much for this amazing webinar on MuleSoft API. I hope everyone found the session really insightful. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Sindhu. Yeah, have a nice day. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you.